The investment firm's glass tower reflected Seoul's skyline in fractured angles. King Min sat in his corner office on the 42nd floor, reviewing quarterly reports that disguised his real business: money laundering, protection rackets, and strategic acquisitions of properties nobody asked questions about. At 30, he'd perfected the appearance of legitimacy while controlling an empire that thrived in shadows. His assistant knocked once before entering. "Mr. King, the contractors are here about the Gangnam property." King Min didn't look up from his screen. "Send them in." 3 men in suits filed in, nervous despite their bulk. They should be. King Min's reputation wasn't built on mercy. He discussed numbers and timelines with cold precision, and they left 10 minutes later looking relieved to have escaped unscathed. The office returned to silence except for the hum of central air and the distant sound of traffic 42 floors below. King Min loosened his tie, charcoal gray today, paired with a black suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and returned to work. At 3 p.m., his phone buzzed. A text from Minyi, his head of security. "New English teacher for the language academy downstairs started today. Thought you should know." King Min frowned. The language academy on the building's 2nd floor was one of his legitimate holdings, primarily used to process visa paperwork for foreign workers in his various businesses. He liked knowing who came and went. "Background check," he texted back. "Clean, Ghanaian 25, teaching credentials verified. Name's Ama Osai." King Min filed the information away and forgot about it. Foreign teachers came and went. None of them were his concern. Until he saw her. It was Tuesday evening. King Min had stayed late reviewing contracts for a new restaurant acquisition, another business that would serve as a front for his operations. He was heading to the private elevator when he heard laughter echoing in the lobby. The building was mostly empty at 7 p.m. King Min paused at the edge of the open atrium, looking down at the 2nd-floor balcony that overlooked the marble entrance. That's when she walked into view. She was talking on her phone, smiling at whatever the person on the other end was saying. Even from a floor above, King Min could see her clearly: light brown skin that seemed to glow under the building's designer lighting, curves that made his mouth go dry despite himself, and an ease in her movement that suggested she was completely comfortable in her own body. She wore simple clothes, a mustard yellow blouse tucked into dark jeans, but the way the fabric draped over her figure made King Min's pulse spike in a way he hadn't experienced in years. He'd had women, plenty of them, brief encounters that satisfied physical needs without emotional complications. He'd trained himself to view desire as something controllable, manageable, irrelevant to his real work. But watching this woman laugh into her phone, completely unaware of his presence, King Min felt something shift in his chest. His body responded with an intensity that caught him off guard, heat spreading through him, his pants suddenly tight and uncomfortable, his carefully maintained control slipping like sand through fingers. She ended her call and headed toward the exit, her hips swaying naturally as she walked. King Min stood frozen, gripping the railing of the atrium, watching until she disappeared through the glass doors onto the Seoul street. Even after she'd gone, he remained there, his heart pounding, his body still responding to the mere memory of her presence. This was ridiculous, unprofessional, dangerous. "Boss." King Min turned sharply. Minyi had appeared beside him, tactfully looking elsewhere. "The new teacher," King Min said, his voice rougher than intended. "That was her." "Yes, sir. Ama Osai. Just finished her first day. Students loved her, according to the academy director." King Min nodded, not trusting himself to speak. His body was still betraying him, still responding to a woman who'd done nothing but walk through a lobby talking on her phone. At 30 years old, he felt like a teenager who'd never learned control. "Pull her file," he said. "Everything, where she lives, where she goes, who she talks to." Minyi hesitated. "Boss, she's just a teacher. Background check showed nothing suspicious." "I didn't ask for your opinion." King Min's tone went cold. "Pull the file." "Yes, sir." King Min took his private elevator down to the underground garage, slid into his black Mercedes, and sat in silence for a full minute before starting the engine. His hands gripped the steering wheel, and he was acutely aware of the discomfort in his body, a physical response he hadn't experienced this intensely since he was barely 20 and hadn't yet learned to compartmentalize everything. He'd killed 17 men, negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions, stared down prosecutors and rival bosses without flinching. But a woman walking through a lobby had undone him completely. The drive to his penthouse in Hanamdong took 30 minutes through evening traffic. King Min barely registered the journey. His mind kept replaying those few seconds, her smile, her curves, the way she'd moved with such unconscious grace. At home, he poured whiskey he didn't drink and stood at his living room window overlooking the Han River. The city sprawled endlessly in all directions, millions of lights marking millions of lives. Somewhere down there, she was settling into her new apartment, probably exhausted from her first day, completely unaware that she'd just demolished a decade of carefully constructed emotional detachment. King Min's phone buzzed. Sung-ho, his second-in-command, Busan crew confirmed for Thursday meeting. Park Jin-woo wants to discuss territory. He should focus on that. Park was ambitious and stupid, a dangerous combination. The meeting would require careful handling, potential threats, maybe violence if Park pushed too hard. But King Min couldn't concentrate. His mind kept drifting to light brown skin and a smile that had hit him like a physical blow. He went to bed at midnight and lay awake until 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, his body still responding to memories of a woman he'd seen for maybe 30 seconds total. This was insane. The file landed on King Min's desk the next morning. He'd barely slept, his mind replaying the brief glimpse of her, the sound of her laughter, the way she'd moved. He opened the folder with hands that were perfectly steady despite the chaos in his chest. Ama Osai, 25, born in Accra, Ghana, bachelor's degree in education from University of Ghana, TEFL certification obtained in Cape Town, arrived in Seoul 2 weeks ago on a work visa sponsored by the Language Academy. Clean record, no debts, no criminal history, no suspicious connections. She'd rented a small apartment in Yongsan, a neighborhood popular with foreigners. Single, no romantic relationships registered on any social media, no close connections in Korea yet beyond work colleagues. There was a photo, her visa picture. Professional, unsmiling, but even in the bureaucratic image, she was striking. High cheekbones, full lips, eyes that seemed warm even in official documentation. King Min studied the photo for longer than necessary, memorizing every detail. Then he closed the folder and stared out his office window at Seoul spreading endlessly below. He should forget about her. She was nobody, a teacher in one of his buildings. Their paths would never cross meaningfully unless he made them cross. The smart thing would be to maintain complete distance, to never see her again beyond perhaps passing in a hallway, to let whatever this bizarre fixation was die from lack of fuel. But at 3:15 that afternoon, King Min found himself taking the stairs down to the second floor. The Language Academy occupied the entire level, bright classrooms with glass walls, a reception area decorated with travel posters, and a small lounge for teachers. King Min had never visited before. His property manager handled everything related to the academy. He stood outside the glass doors, watching through the transparent walls like some obsessed stalker. Amma was in a classroom with 6 young students, maybe 8 or 9 years old. She was acting something out, pretending to be an airplane, King Min realized, arms spread wide, making engine noises, and the children were laughing hysterically and mimicking her movements. Her whole face was animated, expressive, alive in a way that made King Min's chest ache with something he couldn't name. She wore the same mustard yellow blouse from yesterday and dark jeans, and her hair was pulled back in a thick braid that fell past her shoulders. She moved around the classroom with unconscious grace, her body language open and warm. When she crouched down to help a struggling student, her jeans tightened across her hips and thighs, and King Min had to look away, his body responding immediately and intensely. This was pathetic. He was a 30-year-old man who ran a criminal empire, standing outside a children's English class watching a woman he'd never even spoken to, getting aroused just from seeing her crouch down. He should leave, should go back to his office and forget this ridiculous fixation. The class ended. Students filed out with their parents. Amma stood at the door saying goodbye to each one, high-fiving some, gently correcting others' pronunciation with infinite patience. She was genuinely kind, King Min realized, not performing kindness for an audience, but actually caring about these children. Everything he wasn't. King Min turned to leave, disgusted with himself. "Can I help you?" He froze, turned back. Amma had stepped out of her classroom and was looking at him with curious eyes, warm brown, tilted slightly upward at the corners, framed by long lashes. Up close, she was devastating. Light brown skin smooth and glowing, full lips curved in a polite smile, that small scar near her left eyebrow that somehow made her more beautiful rather than less. She was curvier than he'd realized. The yellow blouse fitted across her breasts and tucked into jeans that hugged hips and thighs that made King Min's mouth go completely dry. He'd forgotten how to form words. At 30 years old, having killed men and negotiated million-dollar deals, he'd forgotten basic speech. "Are you looking for someone?" Amma asked. Her voice was warm, slightly accented, genuinely friendly. "A student or teacher. I'm pretty new here, but I can try to help." "I own the building," King Min managed. "Oh, you're Mr. King?" Her whole face lit up, and the transformation was blinding. "It's so nice to meet you. I'm Amma. I just started teaching here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This building is gorgeous, and the academy is so well equipped. The classrooms have everything we need." She extended her hand. King Min stared at it for a beat too long before taking it. Her palm was warm and soft, and the contact sent electricity straight through his entire body, pooling in his groin with embarrassing intensity. He shook once, brief, then released her hand before he did something insane like pull her closer. "Welcome," he said, voice rough. "Everyone's been so welcoming," Amma continued, completely at ease while King Min felt like he was coming apart. "Seoul is overwhelming, but in a good way, you know? Though I'm still figuring out the subway system. Got lost 3 times yesterday trying to find Myeongdong. Ended up in completely the wrong district and had to use my phone to navigate back." King Min's mind supplied unhelpful information. Myeongdong was 20 minutes by car. He could show her. Could take her anywhere she wanted to go. Could spend hours just listening to her talk in that warm, animated voice. "The subway is complicated," he said instead, struggling for normalcy. "Right, but I'm determined to master it. Part of the adventure of living here." She glanced back at her classroom where another class was filing in. "Oh, I should prep for my next group, but it was really nice meeting you, Mr. King. Thank you again for having such a great facility." "King Min," he said before he could stop himself. "Just King Min." "King Min," she repeated, and hearing his name and her voice with her slight Ghanaian accent did something dangerous to his self-control. "I'll see you around then." She gave him one more warm smile and walked back into her classroom, and King Min stood frozen in the hallway, his heart pounding like he'd just survived a firefight, his body responding so intensely to her proximity that he had to stay still for a full minute before he could trust himself to move without embarrassment. The young receptionist was staring at him with barely concealed shock. King Min never visited the academy, never made small talk, never looked remotely human. He left without another word, took the stairs back to his office 2 at a time, and locked the door behind him. Then he sat at his desk, gripping the edge until his knuckles went white, trying to understand what the hell was happening to him. In 10 years of carefully constructed control, no woman had ever affected him like this. He'd had relationships, if you could call them that, brief affairs with women who understood the rules, physical satisfaction without emotional entanglement, arrangements that ended cleanly without drama. But Amma's smile, her warmth, the brief touch of her hand, the sound of her voice saying his name, it had cracked something open inside him that he'd thought was permanently sealed shut. His phone buzzed. "Sungho, meeting confirmed for tomorrow night. Park is bringing his whole crew, could get tense. King Min stared at the message. This was his real life. Meetings about territory with men who'd kill him if they sensed weakness. Negotiations that sometimes ended in bloodshed. Money and power and endless strategy to stay on top of an empire built on violence. Not English teachers with infectious laughs and eyes that looked at him like he was just a person instead of a monster. He should stay away from her, should maintain absolute professional distance, should recognize that his world and hers couldn't coexist without destroying her. But even as he thought it, King Min was already planning reasons to visit the academy again, to see her, to hear her voice, to feel whatever this terrifying thing was that she'd awakened in him after years of feeling nothing but cold calculation. For the first time in a decade, King Min wanted something that wasn't power or money or control. He wanted to know what it felt like to be human again. And that terrified him more than any enemy ever had. King Min lasted 3 days before he went back. 3 days of distraction during crucial meetings. 3 days of lying awake replaying the sound of her voice, the warmth of her hand, the way she'd smiled at him like he was just a normal person. 3 days of his body responding to mere memories with an intensity that left him uncomfortable and frustrated. On Friday afternoon, he told himself he was checking on building maintenance, that he needed to review the academy's lease terms, that he had legitimate business reasons for being on the second floor at 3:15 p.m. when Amma's afternoon classes ended. All lies. He was there because he needed to see her again, because the alternative, staying away, felt impossible despite every logical reason he could construct. This time, he didn't lurk outside. He walked directly into the academy, nodded at the receptionist who looked startled to see him twice in 1 week, and stood in the small lounge area pretending to examine a bulletin board about upcoming cultural events while his heart hammered against his ribs. When Amma emerged from her classroom 5 minutes later, laughing with another teacher about something, King Min forgot how to breathe. She wore a soft pink sweater today and the same dark jeans, and her hair was pulled back in that thick braid. She looked tired but happy, animated as she talked to her colleague, a young Korean woman who was smiling at whatever Amma was saying. Her hands moved as she spoke, expressive and graceful, and when she laughed, her whole body participated in the joy. Then she saw him. Her expression shifted, surprise, then recognition, then something that might have been pleasure lighting up her warm brown eyes. King Min, hi, are you checking on us again? Building inspection, he lied, the words coming more smoothly this time. Everything okay? No problems with the facilities, I hope. She approached him, and King Min caught that scent again, cocoa butter and something floral that made his head spin. Everything's fine. He stepped closer, unable to help himself, drawn to her like gravity. How are you settling in? Really well, actually. Amma's enthusiasm was infectious. I found this great international market in Itaewon yesterday that has Ghanaian ingredients, so I can finally cook real food instead of living on convenience store kimbap. And I mastered the subway. She said it with such pride, like she'd conquered Everest. Only got lost once this week, and I figured it out without using my phone. I'm basically a Seoul navigation expert now. That's impressive. King Min meant it. Seoul's subway system confused even natives sometimes. Right, I felt so accomplished. She tilted her head, studying his face with those perceptive eyes. You know, you always look so serious, like intensely serious. Is that just your face, or are you constantly worried about something? The question was so direct, so guileless, that King Min didn't know how to respond. It's just my face. Amma didn't look convinced. I don't buy it. I think you're one of those people who carries the weight of everything on their shoulders and forgets to relax. She was more perceptive than he'd expected. Maybe. Definitely. She crossed her arms, and the gesture made her breasts press against the soft pink fabric of her sweater. King Min forced his eyes back to her face, his body already responding. Do you ever do anything fun? Like, not work-related? Not really. That's sad, King Min. She said it with genuine concern, not pity. You're 30, not 80. You should be enjoying life, not just working all the time. Work is what I know. But is it what you like? She'd asked him this before, he realized, cutting straight to uncomfortable truths. It's complicated. Most important things are. Amma glanced at the clock on the wall. Hey, are you busy right now? Like, immediately right now. King Min's schedule included a meeting with his accountant about restructuring several shell companies, followed by a call with his distributors about pharmaceutical shipments. Why? Because I'm starving, and I was about to go find food, and you look like you could use a break from being so serious all the time. She smiled at him, hopeful and warm. Come get street food with me. There's this pajang matcha 2 blocks away that my co-teacher recommended. You can continue your building inspection by making sure the neighborhood is safe for your employees. She was giving him an excuse, a way to say yes without admitting he wanted to spend time with her. King Min should decline, should make up some urgent business, should maintain distance. Okay, he heard himself say. Amma's face lit up like he'd given her something precious. Really? Awesome. Let me just grab my stuff. She disappeared into the classroom for 30 seconds, emerging with a canvas bag slung over her shoulder. Ready? Lead the way, building inspector. They left together, and King Min was acutely aware of her beside him as they walked through Seoul's early evening streets. The city was transitioning from day to night, office workers heading home, students clustering outside convenience stores, vendors setting up for dinner service. Amma talked as they walked, pointing out things she'd discovered about the neighborhood, a bakery that made amazing pastries, a bookstore with English books, a park where elderly men played baduk. She was observant, curious about everything, delighted by small details most people ignored. King Min mostly listened, absorbing her voice, her enthusiasm, the way she seemed to find joy in ordinary things. It was foreign to him, this ability to be present and happy without calculation or strategy. The pajang matcha was exactly what she'd described, a small orange tent with plastic stools around a narrow counter where an elderly woman worked a grill with practiced efficiency. The smell of sizzling meat and fermented cabbage filled the air. They sat side by side on stools that were too small, their knees almost touching in the cramped space. King Min was hyper-aware of her proximity, the warmth radiating from her body, her arm occasionally brushing his, her thigh just inches from his own. I have no idea what to order, Amma admitted, studying the handwritten menu board with adorable concentration. What's good here? King Min ordered for them both in rapid Korean, tteokbokki, odeng, kimchi, and 2 bottles of soju. The Ajumma glanced at him with recognition that quickly became calculated blindness. She knew who he was. Good. That meant she'd keep her mouth shut about seeing him here with a woman. You ordered alcohol. Amma raised an eyebrow, smiling. In the middle of the afternoon, are you trying to get me drunk, King Min? It's traditional with street food. Sure. She was teasing him, completely at ease. Is this you corrupting the innocent foreign teacher? You don't seem particularly innocent. The words came out before he could stop them. Oh, Amma's smile turned mischievous, and King Min's body responded immediately. What do I seem like then? Brave, warm, alive, everything I'm not. Troublesome. She laughed, that sound that had been haunting him for days. My mother would completely agree with you. She thinks moving to Korea by myself was the most reckless thing I've ever done. Very disappointed in her daughter's life choices. Why did you come? King Min asked, genuinely curious. Seoul specifically, why here? Amma's expression shifted, still smiling, but something shadowed moved behind her eyes. Sometimes you need to be somewhere nobody knows your story, where you can be whoever you want instead of whoever people expect. King Min understood that better than she could possibly imagine. What's your story? She wagged a finger at him, playful. That's a 3rd date conversation minimum. You have to earn the trauma dump. This is a date. The words hung between them. King Min watched color rise in Amma's light brown cheeks, a flush that made her even more beautiful. I meant hypothetically, if this were a date, which it's not, obviously. She stumbled over the words, flustered in a way that made King Min want to smile. It's just, two people eating food together, colleagues, building owner and employee, very professional. Very professional, King Min echoed, and this time he did smile, just slightly. There it is again, Amma pointed at his face, delighted. You smiled, twice now. I'm keeping count. By the end of the month, I'm going to make you actually laugh. That's my new goal. That's your goal, making me laugh. One of them, I'm very goal-oriented. The food arrived, and Amma stared at the array of dishes with wide eyes. Oh wow, this looks amazing. Okay, teach me. How do I eat this without embarrassing myself? King Min showed her how to pick up the tteokbokki with chopsticks, which she struggled with adorably before giving up and using the wooden skewer instead. She tried the odeng and made appreciative noises that did absolutely nothing good for King Min's self-control. This is so good, she said between bites. Why is street food here better than restaurant food back home? That doesn't seem fair. Korea takes food seriously. Clearly, she took a tentative sip of soju and made a face. Oh God, that's strong. It tastes like rubbing alcohol. You don't have to drink it. No, I want the full experience. She took another sip, determined, and coughed slightly. I'll get used to it, probably, maybe. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. King Min was acutely aware of every small movement she made, the way she pushed her braid over her shoulder, how she hummed softly when she liked something, the little furrow between her eyebrows when she concentrated on using chopsticks. So you just run all those buildings alone? Amma asked eventually. No partners, no family involved. It was my grandfather's business originally. He started with one building. I expanded after he died. The partial truth came easily now. Do you miss him? Every day. The old man had been the only person who'd ever looked at King Min with something other than fear or calculation. Yes. That's hard, losing someone and then having to carry on what they built. Amma's voice was gentle. Do you think he'd be proud of what you've done? No, the old man would be horrified. He'd run honest businesses, lived with integrity. King Min had taken that foundation and built an empire on corruption and violence. I don't know. I think he would be, Amma said with surprising certainty. You're obviously successful, and you seem to care about things even if you pretend not to. That counts for something. King Min didn't know what to say to that. She was wrong, so completely wrong about who he was, but her faith in him felt like something precious and fragile that he wanted to protect even through deception. Tell me about your family, he said, desperate to change the subject. Amma's whole face transformed. For the next 20 minutes, she painted pictures with words. Her mother who ran a fabric shop in Accra and had opinions about everything. Her father who taught mathematics and did crossword puzzles obsessively. Her younger brother Kofi who was studying engineering and called her weekly to complain about his professors. She talked about heat and humidity, about markets overflowing with color and noise, about music and food, and a childhood filled with loud, chaotic love. King Min absorbed every detail like a man dying of thirst. Her life was so different from his, warm where his was cold, full where his was empty, connected where his was isolated. Sorry, Amma said finally, laughing self-consciously. I'm talking too much. I do that when I'm comfortable with someone. Feel free to tell me to shut up. Don't. The word came out more intense than intended. King Min softened his tone. I like listening to you. Yeah, she looked pleased. Most people zone out when I get going. My ex used to. She trailed off, something painful flickering across her face. Your ex? The reason I left Ghana. Amma took another sip of soju, grimacing less this time. We were engaged, wedding planned, dress bought, everything ready. Then I found out he'd been cheating with my best friend. For 2 years, the whole community knew except me. Rage rose hot and sharp in King Min's chest. He was an idiot. Probably, but mostly I was angry at myself for being so blind, for believing everything he said when everyone else could see the truth. She wrapped her hands around her soju bottle. So I broke the engagement, quit my teaching job, and bought a one-way ticket here. My mother hasn't forgiven me. She thinks I'm running away from my problems instead of facing them. You're not running, King Min said firmly. You're choosing yourself, that's different. Amma met his eyes, and something passed between them, understanding, recognition, connection. What about you? Have you ever been in love? No, never. Love required vulnerability King Min couldn't afford. Not really. Not really, or not at all. Not at all. That's sad, Amma said softly. Everyone should experience that kind of connection at least once, even if it ends badly. Does it usually end badly? In my experience, yes, she smiled sadly. But I'm still hopeful, still think maybe next time will be different. Is that stupid? It's brave. King Min found himself leaning slightly closer. Most people would close themselves off after being hurt like that. I tried. Lasted about 3 days before I realized being closed off just makes you lonely. Amma tilted her head, studying his face. You seem lonely, King Min, like you're surrounded by people but still completely alone. She saw too much, way too much. King Min should deflect, change the subject, maintain his walls. Yes, he said instead, I am. Why? Because it's safer. Safer than what? Than letting people close enough to hurt me. The honesty escaped before he could stop it. Amma's expression softened with something that might have been compassion. That's not safety, King Min. That's just a different kind of pain. She was right. God, she was right. The loneliness he'd cultivated as protection had become its own prison. His phone buzzed, once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. King Min wanted to ignore it. Wanted to sit here in this cramped pajangmacha with Amma forever, talking about things that mattered, feeling something other than emptiness. But the buzzing continued. Finally, he pulled out his phone. 4 messages from Sung-ho. Boss, Park moved the meeting up to tonight. Says it's urgent, won't tell me why. He's bringing his whole crew. Something's wrong. Need you at the Yongsan location by 8 p.m. King Min checked the time. 7:15. He had 45 minutes. Work emergency? Amma asked, reading his expression. Yes. King Min stood, leaving money on the counter, far too much, but he didn't care. I have to go, I'm sorry. It's okay. Amma stood too, but she looked disappointed. I understand. Important building owner stuff. If only she knew. Let me drive you home first. You don't have to do that. I can take the subway. It's on my way. Another lie, but King Min wasn't letting her navigate Seoul alone at night. Please. Something in his tone made her nod. Okay, thank you. They walked to his Mercedes in silence. When Amma slid into the passenger seat, she looked around at the leather interior with wide eyes. This car probably costs more than I'll make in 5 years of teaching. Probably more like 10 years, but King Min didn't correct her. What's your address? She gave it, and King Min drove through early evening traffic with practiced ease. His mind was already shifting to the meeting ahead, calculating what Park wanted, preparing for confrontation, planning responses to various scenarios. But part of him remained hyper-aware of Amma beside him. Her perfume filled the car. Her presence pulled at him like gravity. When they stopped at a red light, he glanced over and found her watching him. You're worried about this meeting, she observed. I can tell. It's complicated business. King Min, she hesitated, then continued. I don't know what you're involved in, and maybe I don't want to know, but whatever it is, be careful, okay? She knew, maybe not details, but she sensed something dark underneath his surface. And instead of running, she was asking him to be careful. I will, he promised. At her apartment building in Yongsan, Amma unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't immediately get out. Thank you for tonight. The food, the conversation, all of it. I had a really nice time. Me too, more than she could possibly understand. We should do this again, maybe, she said it hopefully, biting her lower lip in a way that made King Min's body respond intensely. I mean, if you want to, no pressure. He should say no, should end this before it went any further, should protect her from what he was. I'd like that, King Min said instead, very much. Amma's smile could have powered the entire city. Okay, good, really good. She reached out and squeezed his hand briefly, just a moment of contact, but it burned through him. "Be safe, King Min, whatever you're walking into." Then she was gone, disappearing into her building, and King Min sat alone in his car trying to remember how to breathe normally. His phone buzzed again. "Sung-ho, where are you? Park's already here. He's agitated." King Min started the engine and drove toward Yongsan, toward confrontation and potential violence, toward the darkness that defined his real life. But for 2 hours, eating street food with Amma, he'd forgotten about all of it, had felt something other than cold calculation, had wanted something that wasn't power or control. And now that he'd tasted what it felt like to be human again, he wasn't sure he could go back to being the monster his empire required. That realization terrified him more than any meeting with Park Jinwoo ever could. The Yongsan restaurant was nearly empty, a deliberate choice. Park Jinwoo sat at a corner table with 5 men, all dressed in expensive suits that couldn't hide their violent nature. When King Min entered, Park's expression was smug. "You're late," Park said. "I'm here." King Min sat across from him, Min-yi positioning himself behind his boss's chair. "What's so urgent?" "I've been thinking about our arrangement." Park leaned back, casual. "Gangnam territory isn't enough anymore. I want Yongsan too, and Mapo. Actually, I want everything north of the river." King Min kept his expression neutral. "That's ambitious." "I'm being realistic. You're distracted lately, King Min word travels, closing your office early, eating street food with foreign women." Park's smile turned cruel. "Some people think you're losing focus." Ice flooded King Min's veins. Park had been watching him, which meant Park knew about Amma. "Careful," King Min said quietly. "You're overstepping." "Am I?" Park pulled out his phone, swiped to a photo. "Pretty girl, the teacher in your building. Amma, right, from Ghana, been in Seoul 2 weeks." King Min's hands clenched beneath the table. "She's irrelevant." "Then you won't mind if I pay her a visit. Get to know your new employee." Park's threat was clear. The rage that rose in King Min was white-hot and absolute. He'd killed for less. But violence here would start a war, and wars meant chaos. Chaos meant vulnerability. "Name your price," King Min said. 40% of your operations, and you leave the teacher alone. I like a man who can be motivated properly." King Min stood. "You have until Monday to leave Seoul, permanently, or I'll make you wish you'd never learned my name." Big words for someone with a weakness. "Not a weakness." King Min leaned down, voice deadly soft. "A line you don't cross. Min-yi, we're done here." They left, and in the car, King Min made 4 calls to allies, enforcers, police on his payroll. By midnight, Park would know he'd miscalculated badly. But the damage was done. Park knew about Amma, which meant others would too. King Min drove to her apartment building and sat outside for an hour, watching her lit window on the 3rd floor. She was safe tonight. Tomorrow he'd assign protection, subtle enough she wouldn't notice. His phone rang, unknown number. "Yes." "King Min." The voice was distorted. Park was clumsy, but he had the right idea. "The girl is leverage. We'll be in touch about what we want for her safety." The line went dead. King Min stared at his phone, every muscle rigid with rage and fear. He'd spent 10 years building an empire without vulnerabilities, without caring about anything enough to be exploited. Then Amma had walked through a lobby smiling, and in less than a week, she'd become the one thing that could destroy him. Someone knew it. Someone was already weaponizing it. And King Min had no idea who, or how to stop them without putting her in even more danger. He looked up at her window, where she was probably getting ready for bed, completely unaware that she'd just become the target of forces she couldn't begin to understand. King Min had 2 choices: walk away and let her return to being nobody, safe in her insignificance, or stay close and accept that he'd just painted a target on the back of the first person he'd cared about in a decade. The choice should have been obvious. But as he watched her silhouette move past the window, King Min knew he was already too far gone to choose the smart option. He was going to protect her, even if it meant burning his entire empire to the ground.